give them the address, tell them what's going on. And they say, hey, where are you at? Are you in the house? This guy has guns in the house. We know who this guy is. He's got guns in his house. You need to be careful, and you probably should get out of there.
Welcome back to the How to Real Estate Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Jeremy Smith, and I am Kyle Lindsay. And we're going to take a small departure from our normal type of podcast here, where we normally give you tips, tricks, advice, tactics on how to be a fantastic real estate agent. We've had a lot of people send in some questions to us about some of our past experiences in real estate. We thought it'd be fun to take a minute and each of us answer the questions with a story of our own and kind of tell those. So I am excited to get into some of our past here and some of our stories and in real estate. So Jeremy, let's kick off just a little bit of history here. How long have you been in real estate?
So this is actually round 2 for me. I got into real estate originally in 2003, and then I got out about 2006. Probably for 2 of those 3 years, I was a part-time agent. Mm-hmm. Then I left the job I was at, and I did it full-time for about a year before I got hired on with the railroad because I sucked. I always say the market sucked, but no, some people made it and I didn't, so I sucked. But anyway, then got back in 2000, got licensed in 15, started working in 16. We're in 2003. So what's that, 7 years? Mm-hmm. 7 years. What about you?
So I got into real estate, I'm not even remembering the year, probably about 9-10 years ago through rentals. So I always knew that I wanted to be a real estate investor, and I got my first rental around that time. And then a few years later, I bought my second rental. And the agent that helped me I found him through Bigger Pockets, which is a real estate investing website. We talk shop a lot. And I decided at that point, I really just enjoyed the world of real estate. So I thought I was going to get my license, become an investor with a license. Lo and behold, you find out once you get your license how expensive it is.
No kidding.
And, just along the way, I was a part-time agent for a few years and then decided, you know what, I just really want to do this full time and represent people and help them through their transactions, all the while finding more investment opportunities for myself. So I've been a full-time agent for the last 3-4 years and doing well.
Kyle and we have a lot of transactions closed. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of stories. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of stories on things that we've experienced and craziness that we're gonna share with you guys today. So we got some questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for sending those in to us. God damn it, I couldn't do it.
We got questions sent in by some fans and some listeners and subscribers of the podcast. Mm-hmm. So
so if you want to see maybe in a future episode we do like this, some of your questions get answered, just send them to the How to Real Estate Podcast at gmail.com. Yeah. The email address will be in the description below. Yeah.
And you can comment the questions here below too if you want to, but the important thing is to subscribe, follow, and like and share and hit the bell so you get notifications and hear more of this craziness because we're about to bring it. Do you want to ask the first question or you want me to ask it?
I'll ask the first question. So This comes from Taylor in Kansas City. What is the craziest client you've ever had to deal with?
Ooh, craziest client. Dude, I've got a crazy one. There was this client. So I did a lot of prospecting on expired listings. Mm-hmm. And one morning was doing prospecting and talked to a guy and set up an appointment out in a town called Frisco. Not too far from here, about a 35-minute drive or so from where we're at. So the guy's property had expired. Went over there and ended up getting the listing. The way we had to do the listing appointment was very different. It wasn't like there was no table, like the house was a mess. The poor guy was going through a lot. So he had broken off some keys inside of the locks. So previous resident could not get back in, right? So I was like, hey, let's clean up the property. We'll do professional photos and I'll change these locks out for you because he didn't have any money to do it. So a beautiful house too. And it's a big house, but it was an absolute disaster. So I go over there that morning and I knock on the door and nobody's answering, right? And I had confirmed with him the day before that I was going to be there. So knocked on the door, nobody answered. I knew that sometimes he left that back door open. So I went back there just to see if it was open. It wasn't. It was locked. So I'm like, okay, well, he's here. So I go back around to the front. And when I get to the front, he's in the window next to the door just staring at me. And his hair was like he had just woken up, right? He had bedhead galore. Right. He's got this blank stare too. It wasn't just like I'm looking out the window to see who's there. It was really what they call a 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
Right. The guy was just staring at me. So I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, I'm here to change your locks. You know, remember me? And he opens the door and he's in like little gym shorts. Awkward, but okay. He's in little gym shorts. And then he reveals something that's in his hand. And he's got a cup. You know those cups that like when you go to the doctor or the hospital, like they have the big clear cups.
Yeah, you have to screw on lids and
they've got like measurements on the side, however many milliliters or ounces or whatever. So he's got one of those and it's full of water. So he never took his eyes off me. The guy's just staring at me, this 1,000-yard stare the whole time. He opens the door. I'm like, hey man, it's me. I'm here to change your locks. Do you remember me? And while he's staring at me, never breaks eye contact. He like extends his arm with this cup in it and just violently dumps the water out on the ground. As he's staring at me, like it was so disrespectful. Right? He just like dumps the water out. I'm like,
dump the water out disrespectfully.
Yeah, so disrespectfully, man. It was bad. And so I'm like, all right, dude, do you want me to take pictures and change these locks? Because actually, no, I wasn't going to do professional photos because the house was such a wreck. I was just going to use my cell phone, and which I don't like to do, but there were parts of the house that I could get away with it. So he lets me in. He goes, yeah, come in, and then he turns around and walks off to the couch, and we get into the house, and it's got high voltage ceilings and wood floors, and the kitchen was a mess. He did absolutely nothing that he said he was going to do. So here I am trying to clean up the kitchen so I could take a decent photo. I'm putting stuff in the dishwasher and in cabinets, like just really trying to clean up. And I'm doing that for maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And then all of a sudden this guy starts screaming and crying, wailing. No. I'm like, what is going on? Like my initial reaction was to get the hell out of there. But then I'm like, well, what if this guy needs help? Like what's going on with him? He's doing this. And then he starts saying, no, don't hurt me. And he's looking at me while he's screaming this on his couch. No, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. I'm like, dude, what is going on? I'm here to change your locks, bro. I'm not here to hurt you at all. So then he gets up and he goes into his bedroom, which is like on the other side of the wall the TV was on in the living area. So it wasn't far, just right around the corner in the hall, walks around, goes in his bed, and he's like I could tell he was having a hard time breathing. Well, at least it sounded like that. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you need me to call an ambulance for you? And he was like, yeah, call the ambulance. And then I kind of look into the room and he's got a bottle of vodka and he's drinking this vodka in between gasping for air. So sad, dude. So sad to see. And so I call 911, give them the address, tell them what's going on. And they say, hey, where are you at? Are you in the house? This guy has guns in the house. We know who this guy is. He's got guns in his house. You need to be careful and you probably should get out of there. And I'm like, okay, well, if I leave, then the cops come in here. They don't know where the guy's at. He doesn't know they're coming in. Like, would that create a worse situation? I'm talking to him as I'm on the phone with the 911 operator. And in Texas, there's a thing here, thank God, where we can conceal carry guns with a license back then. Now you don't need one, but I was concealed carrying. I asked him, I said, hey, man, the ambulance is on the way, but they're telling me that you have guns in the house. And this dude, like mid-scream, stops, looks at me and goes, yeah. Like, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, maybe I should get the hell out of here.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, dude. So at that moment, I pulled out my gun. He didn't know it because I was like kind of behind the wall. So I just had it in my right hand and my right hand was not visible to him. And I said, okay, well, don't reach for it, but where is it at? He's like, I'm not going to tell you where it's at. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but don't get off your bed then. Like, just stay right there. They're coming to help you. And then he starts screaming again, screaming and crying. The cops get there. They go in and clear the room and make sure he doesn't have any guns with them and then take him out on a stretcher.
That's nuts, dude.
Yeah. And I changed the locks.
Took the listing photos and sold it.
Yeah, I did. I took the listing photos. I changed the locks. Didn't sell.
Oh, well, surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Come to find out that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was an alcoholic. He was going through a divorce. He was off his meds.
Oof, rough combination.
Dude, it was bad. And I feel so bad for the guy, man. And I was like asking his mom, why didn't you tell me this?
Right.
Because we had talked before. I'm like, you should have given me a heads up. Like, You put me and him in a really bad situation.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah, so that was a crazy one, man. It had my heart beating. You know, I'd never pulled a gun out on anybody, let alone a client.
Right.
You know. So yeah, that is my crazy client story.
So that yours tops mine. My best one is one that I actually never turned into a client, but I went to a listing appointment. It was actually this year. You know exactly who I'm talking about. So this is a sign call from one of our other listings that's only like a street over from here. And she's thinking about selling her house. And I get there and we sit down and I'm going to start, through the normal listing stuff. I'm talking to her about her expectations and what she wants to get out of the sale. And I'm asking her questions about the house, just trying to really get a good baseline and to build a rapport with her. And the lady that is actually the owner of the house, she's in her late 80s, almost 90. And her daughter is there who lives with her in her 60s. I'm talking to her and then she says, oh, well, I almost had the house sold recently. And I was like, oh, okay. Were you talking to another agent? She goes, no, it's the guy behind the house. I was like, oh, is he interested in the house? Maybe we could talk to him and work an off-market deal. And she goes, well, he likes to sneak in at night and try to sell the house.
What?
And I just stopped.
What?
And I was like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah. So he likes to come in through the window and try to sell my house. And he's had some people here. He brings his daughter with him. And he's trying to sell my house out from underneath me.
Dude.
And I was like looking at her and I like looked over at her daughter, like for some help here. Like what's happening? Like what is happening right now? And I was like, oh, okay. So tell me a little bit more about that. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, it normally happens when I'm home alone. I'll be sleeping in my chair or something. I'll wake up and he'll just be standing there. But when I go to turn a light on, he's gone.
Oh, damn.
And I was just like, I'm sorry, what? And she's like, yeah. And he comes in here, he'll bring people by. He almost had it sold once, but it didn't go through. And he's trying to move his son here and wants to buy the house for him. And it was just like, it just went on and on. It was just this person who was coming into our house, but not leaving any trace, even if the doors are locked. When the lights come on, she's gone. And I didn't want to even ask this question, but I was like, what makes you think if you sell the house and move, he's not going to follow you?
Right.
Because this doesn't sound like a neighbor. It sounds like a ghost. And as I was leaving, I asked her daughter, like, hey, can I have a few words with you outside real quick? And she was just like, no, like shut the door. So I got the impression that like her mom has done this before. And so like, wow. I tried to follow up with her daughter a few times because we had her phone number. That's how we actually set the whole thing up. It's through her daughter. Ghosted me. Get it?
Get it.
Yeah, she ghosted me.
She ghosted
and
you.
I didn't respond to anything. I was actually, a couple of my texts were like, hey, I'm really concerned about your mom. Like she was showing signs of like not being all there. Like I don't think she could even actually sign a listing agreement. I don't think she's in her right mind.
Yeah.
Like, are you, whatever. And I was trying to go into that route with her and it just wasn't happening.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was crazy just hearing this woman look you straight in the, kind of like the guy was looking at you with it wasn't quite the 1,000-yard stare, but she looked me straight in the eye and told me a man came in through her window every night.
So she believed it.
And tried to sell her house. Yeah, she believed it.
Yeah.
That's what was crazy to me is I didn't want to like upset her anymore.
Yeah.
Call her a liar.
Right. Just,
right. Like that doesn't happen. What are you talking about?
They're not coming in, lady.
Yeah. So anyway, it was crazy.
That is nuts, man. And I'm curious, you guys, what are your crazy stories?
Yeah. Hit us up in the comments.
I know you got one that tops both of ours. There's a lot of crazy people out there.
Right. You want to ask the next question?
Yeah. Next question. So who
sent that in?
This question comes from Bruce Springsteen. What is the most you've ever sold a home over the original asking price when that was going down?
Man, yeah. So back in 2021, back in the good old days, when a house would sell within 8 hours of listing, and probably actually more like 8 minutes. I had an old friend that I met in Lubbock when I went to school there, and I'd helped him buy a house when he moved back to DFW, and then a few years later, he's moving back to Lubbock for another job. So luckily, he'd been in the house for a few years, but he bought when the market was a little slower, and I got him a great deal in the house. And then a few years later, the market was crazy in 2021. I was able to list his house at a price that I knew it would sell for, and it started, and the winning bid going towards the end of the weekend, where we asked for highest and best, was about 60 grand over the list price.
Wow.
And I sent some emails out to all the top 4 or 5 emails. I sent it to everyone, but I was really targeting the top 4 or 5. I said, hey, look, we have 4 or 5 fantastic offers. No one has been the clear winner yet. Even though we had one that was more in price, but their terms weren't quite as good. But I said, hey, we have 4 really great offers. Here are the best terms. highest and best by this point. And that agent that had the most called me. And she was like, hey, look, what do I need to do? And I was like, look, I need to give, said, you guys have a fantastic price. You've given us a really good price as far as what you're asking for. But if you could fix these terms, that would be great. And she said, well, do we need to up our price anymore? I was like, look, I can't tell you the exact amount. I was like, but it couldn't hurt. That's how I left it.
Yeah.
They upped it another $11,000.
Damn.
So they were already our highest by 5. Now they're their highest by 16, and they adjusted all the terms. So I ended up getting him $76,000 or $71,000 over his list price. And when I told him the story about getting another $11,000 over what they had even had before, he bought me a $1,000 bottle of whiskey as a closing gift for me.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It was one of the nicest whiskeys I've ever had.
I bet. $1,000 better be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mine, I if I remember correctly, I think it was 80. Mm-hmm. But I got 105 in my head. I know something, but that may have been one of my buyers. 80 was in Trophy Club. It was like at the very beginning of all this craziness. It was such a big difference between number 1 and number 2. Yeah. Like I think they came in, I think 60,000 over, and then number 2 was like 20 grand over, but we still called for best and final. Mm-hmm. And then 60 grand over up theirs to 80. Yeah. And then they were like $60,000 above the next one. Man. And we went with it, right? Yeah. But I felt so bad because I'm like, dude, if you guys only knew, like, you didn't need to change it, but I can't tell them that. Right. You know, that was a weird time. It was super weird, man. Like, yeah, you felt a little weird. Like, it was one of those things, like, I'm doing what's best for my client. Yeah. But you feel a little dirty doing it. For sure. Yeah. You feel like you're asking for more. No, give me more. No, give me more. No, give me more. It really developed a lot. I would say my negotiation skills went up like, I don't have a number to quantify. I was trying to think of something in my head, but they went up significantly that year because as a buyer's agent, trying to protect your client became ridiculously hard. Yeah. And trying to get any information on the listing agents, how we're talking about, because it's not always in their best interest. But man, my negotiation tactics and skills that year to find out those details, like, hey, so I know we have a great price, like, what can I do with my terms to make this the best? Yeah. And like this, and this. And if we did and this is when, before I even knew exactly what to say, I would say, if we did this, or would you accept the offer? Right. And that's when they'd be like, well, and like, okay, is it a price thing? Yeah. And then maybe they were lying to me, but you do your best. Right. And I'd like to think most of the time I didn't do the bet against myself and go 20 over when I was already 40 over. I know. So I know. You just never knew. Yeah. There's just no way to know. Mm-hmm. I've had so many clients that had to do that, bid over themselves, it's, I hate it. Yeah. All right. So that's our biggest over ask. And I know there's folks, I heard about a lady in San Diego County that I think it was like 400,000 over. Ugh. Yeah. Insane. Yeah. Insane. Lady, if you're listening, chime in. Let us know. Well, the one I got the 71,000 over, the list price was 360. So that's significant. Like when you look at percentage. It was dang near 30%. Yeah. It was crazy. Crazy times. And that's why buyers are taking it out on sellers now. Yes. All right. We got question number 3. Who sent that one in? All right. So this one is from another famous Bruce, Bruce L. He sends in, what is the worst agent you've ever had to deal with? I have a feeling that Bruce L. would have kicked this agent's ass. Or give him the 5-finger death punch. Yeah. Yeah, the 1-inch punch. Yeah, the 1-inch punch. He must have sent this question in a long-ass time ago, too. He's had it in his inbox. It's scheduled to send. I love you, Bruce. That's real. Yeah. All right. So, worst agent that you've ever dealt with. Should I say her name? No. Probably not, huh? No. It starts with a C and ends with Laudia. I'm just playing. I thought you were going to say it starts with a C and rhymes with punt. That was her middle name. So, working this deal, it was a referral. It was a listing, referral from another client, and the lady was awesome. Like they were moving to Joshua from like Arlington or something. We got their home under contract, and the agent clearly did not know what she was doing, but she was super aggressive, like super aggressive. Like she was overcompensating, I think, for her lack of knowledge and trying to just be mean and aggressive. So conversations with her were like daunting. Like She didn't get it, didn't understand simple contract stuff. Like I'm trying to educate her. She's pushing back on everything I say because she's got to be right, you know? So she just made like the whole experience difficult. But what really makes her the worst agent I've ever dealt with is some of the backhanded stuff that she did. And I never turned her into Trek. And I should have, really should have. The thing that stood out the most about this woman is there's inspections going on at the house, like every transaction does have, right? And so they did the inspections. They asked for the moon and the stars, and we shot that down. And so they wanted to have a structural inspection done. So they sent I think it was a foundation company. I don't even think it was a structural engineer. Sent a foundation company out there to do the inspection. And the homeowner wasn't there. She couldn't be there, but she knew what was going on with his agent and how rough the transaction had been with his agent. And so her dad decided he was going to show up. So it's a sunny day out there. I think this may have been in springtime. Beautiful weather. Everybody's in good moods, you know, and dad's like, yeah, daughter, I'll show up to this inspection and have your back, you know. And so he gets there. And when he's there, he pulls up and he sees the agent and he sees somebody else, right? Who's thought to be an inspector. We'll later find out was the inspector. So they're there. Dad gets out of his car, walks up to the two, and hears a conversation where the agent is pretending to be the seller and is talking to the inspector as if she's the seller and trying to get information from him. I don't remember exactly what it was, but trying to get information from him, right? And the dad's hearing all this and he goes, wait a minute, I'm her dad. Like, you're not so-and-so.
Wow.
And so the dad busted her lying in front of the inspector. And that was just one thing, man. It was a nightmare transaction. We ended up getting it closed, and it closed late. This is an agent who missed the option period deadline and then tried to terminate afterwards. Like, she just did so much stuff, and it was such a headache to have to deal with. And I get agents being new, but when you're new and you don't know and you're an asshole, that just compounds it. So that's the worst one I've ever dealt with. What about you?
You know, similar. It's similar because it's someone who didn't know what they were doing, but was hyper aggressive. And so I had a transaction. This was actually in 2022, and it was towards the end of the frenzy. And it was we started seeing the downturn in the market happen. And right as the downturn began, I got a house under contract. Now, this was not a great house, and we priced it not over what I thought it would appraise for, but probably close to the top of what I thought it would actually get. The sellers had been seeing all the headlines about everything. And I tried to warn them, like, hey, interest rates are starting to go up. Buyers are starting to cool. There's a little bit of panic in the market. We should price it well. So anyway, they went ahead and priced it higher than I really wanted them to. And it took about 3 weeks. And this agent brought 3 different buyers to the house and submitted 3 different offers for 3 different buyers. Different contracts too. Like, it was, I mean, I don't know what she was talking to each person about, but it was weird seeing 3 different clients have the same agent and have 3 different offers come in. And we chose the best one. Yeah, I guarantee her their clients probably didn't know that, but regardless. We accept this offer, and it's like 15, 20 grand over the asking price. It's a good terms. Well, partway through the contract, we find out, well, they want to switch to FHA from conventional financing to get a better interest rate. And I talk to my clients, I walk them through like, well, when they do that, an FHA appraiser is going to be a little tougher on the property than a conventional appraiser will. That could affect some things. And we went ahead and did it anyway because we didn't want to rock the boat. And this agent had already it's funny, she had made a laundry list of requests during the option period, but she did it 30 minutes before the option period expired. And I told my clients, I said, and I don't do this very often, but sometimes you just know. I was like, look, here's the deal. She's not very good at what she's doing. And she sent this 30 minutes for the deadline. She didn't even send me a text. I only caught it because I happened to check my email.
Yeah.
And so what we can do is just let this expire.
Yeah.
She didn't include a cancellation with it. The option period's going to expire. We don't actually have to do any of this.
Yeah.
And we did. And sure enough, she contacted me the next day. He's like, hey, so what are you going to do about those repairs? And I said, we're not going to do anything. She goes, well, we're going to cancel then. And I said, how? And she started cursing at me and all this stuff. You low down, it's a trick and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Just like blew up at me, yelling at me on the phone, just going nuts. And, you know, I stayed cool because inside I was kind of chuckling a little bit.
It would be too.
And I told her, I was like, look, we're not going to be complete holes about this, but so we are going to do a few of those repairs that my sellers feel are justified, but the rest of the laundry list you can just throw out.
Yeah.
Well, that's a week later they switched to FHA, and I told them they might be trying to do some of this, trying to get an FHA appraiser to come in and demand some of the repairs. Well, sure enough, not all of them, because some of the repairs were just ridiculous. The FHA appraiser came through and demanded a few more of the repairs, so we hired a crew. They came out, they did it. Come to find out, she went out to the house with the appraiser, and some of the repairs she didn't think were done as well. I found out after the fact, because the appraiser didn't tell me during the transaction, but after the transaction, she chipped some of the repairs back out, like some of the drywall repair, and damaged it again. So he would reflag it and have us have to redo it.
What?
Yeah. Found out about that later. Anyway, some crazy. I didn't know this during the time.
Wow.
So then she's like, well, we're going to have to pay for the appraiser to come back out. Who's going to pay for that?
You are.
And I told her, like, you are. You switched to an FHA appraisal. We're trying to get this done for you.
Yeah.
And again, just blowing up, cursing at me and the whole 9 yards. But I did feel like, okay, we're not going to get this good a deal again.
Yeah.
Like at this point, we're 30 days in the transaction. I'm watching the market, and the market's tanking.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, look, if we don't make this deal work, you're not going to just lose the 28 grand over your list price. We're probably going to have to sell under your list price. It could be a $35,000 hit.
Yeah.
I was like, it is in your best interest just to do whatever they want at this point.
Yeah.
And so they paid for the appraisal to come back out. I ended up having to go out there and do the repairs myself on the house.
Oh my God.
And do that. And then I met the appraiser out there. She didn't show up to that one.
Yeah.
Met the guy, went through a few things. Anyway, it all worked out in the end. But man, she probably 3 or 4 different times she called me, and when something didn't go her way, just blew up, cursing at me, like calling me names, the whole night. I mean, she's probably the only agent I've actually ever lost my cool on. Just towards the end of that transaction, I blew up back at her.
Wow.
I felt bad about it later because I just don't normally do that. But man, it was just like, it was too much.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounded like she pushed you over the edge.
Yeah. I mean,
what's up with these agents? Like when they don't know what they're doing, like the way for them to lash out is to like lose their cool.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. So that's part of why I felt bad later, because I did lose my cool with her and put her in her place. But man,
okay.
Oof.
Sounds like she needed it.
It was rough.
Yeah.
It was a rough transaction.
Oh, man, well, at least you got it closed.
Yeah.
At least you got it closed and your clients got a good deal from it.
Yeah.
All right, we got one last question. Time for one
more
question. This question comes from a guy named Bill Clinton. Says, Bill wants to know, how did you get your first sale in real estate?
It was from a cigar. Sorry, that was a bad impression.
It depends on what your definition of is.
All right. So my first sale in real estate actually came from realtor.com.
Did it really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I got my license, like you heard earlier in the podcast, I was a part-time agent. I wasn't doing a whole lot of prospecting. The whole thing, like, well, I got my license now. Why don't I have clients?
Yeah. Aren't
people supposed to just flock to me at this point? So
they didn't?
Surprisingly, I guess it was just my face at that point.
Probably.
So I thought, okay, cool. I'm making money. I have a full-time job. I'm not hurting for money. So I thought, okay, cool. I'll buy some online leads.
Yeah.
So I signed up for a zip code with realtor.com. Again, with zero training, not even understanding how I'm supposed to work these leads.
Right.
And so everyone that came in, I would just text.
Yeah.
I would come in and get the lead. I would text them. And eventually someone, responded, and I met them under the property. Went and did a showing out in the boonies. So brand new agent, internet lead I've never met, didn't even speak to him on the phone, just texted him. And I met him out at a 20-acre property out like way outside of city limits.
Not dangerous at all.
Yeah, looking back on it now, I'm like, what were you thinking?
That's some Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Hills Have Eyes type shit.
Yeah, no shit. So, but it all worked out. I ended up being a buy-sell. I helped them buy 80 acres.
Nice.
Excellent people. I still talk to them to this day. And yeah, they bought that house out there, and I helped them sell their house in Keller afterwards. I did a 1% commission on it because I was brand new, just wanted the business.
Yeah.
But it was worth
Nothing
it.
wrong with that.
Every second of the day, it was. So yeah, realtor.com. I bought my first lead.
Outstanding. So I have a little bit of confusion on this. I know what the question means, but I can't really remember. I have one in my memory that I think was my first. Mm-hmm. But I'm not 100% sure, but I call it my first. So I was watching videos on YouTube about prospecting for expireds and for sell by owners, right? So I was watching these videos, two guys I was watching, one named Colton Lindsay and the other was Aaron Winstein, right? So I'm watching these guys on YouTube. I don't know if they still have those videos up or not. They're both coaches now, so they may have taken them down. But I'm watching their videos and I would write out what they were saying word for word, right? So I would write it out, listen to it, pause it, write it down. So I was doing that. And then I said, okay, well, now let me start calling some for sale by owners. So I called a for sale by owner and pitched an open house for them. And she was like, yeah, tell me more. How does it work? Do I have to pay you anything? No, you don't. So went down there, did the open house for her. At the open house, I think that the house was like, she was asking $125 for it. And a lady came in with her husband and her baby, and they were being kind of rude. And she was like, well, what if I offered you $115 or $110? I think it was. What if I offered you $110? Would you take that? The lady was like, oh, yeah, I would take $110, you know? And the lady's like, well, would you help us pay closing costs? Well, we could talk about that. And she's just giving money away. So the lady left, and we're talking. And I'm like, hey, I just want you to know that the commission on this property is $9,000. You just gave away $15. I can make you more money than you're going to make doing it this way.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, you know, there's some other reasons too. It was her mom's house and she may be listening. So if she is, love you. It was her mom's house and her mom had passed away. And her and her husband had remodeled this home. And so they had some emotional attachment to the home. And some people were in the home talking about some of the tiles in the kitchen that her mom had placed there on purpose. Her mom liked them. And it was emotional for her. You know, she really didn't want to hear all that negative talk, and just going through the whole process was a challenge for her. And one of her siblings was making it rough. So it was a lot easier for us to do it. So she hired us. It was my first listing for sure. We ended up getting the property sold for more than what we were asking for it. And to this day, we are still friends. That was in 2016. We're still friends. I think maybe 8 or 9 transactions have resulted from that relationship between her doing several deals and referrals. And now she owns like 2 houses in Mexico. I think she's always in Mexico. And she's actually just a good friend now. You know, so yeah, that one came about as just watching videos and trying something new. You know, I mean, see if this sticks.
Taking action.
Yeah, taking action. Yeah, risking failure. You know, doing all the things we talked about in the last episode.
Yes.
Right, human connections, connecting, and that's a lasting friendship, lifelong friendship.
Yeah. So if you didn't listen to the last episode, go check it out.
Yeah. Go check that episode out. Yeah. So that is that's it for our 4 questions from our surprise secret question askers.
Yeah, for some of our fans there. So I'd love to do this episode again. Maybe we won't wait another 25 episodes to do it, but yeah, send in some questions, whether it's comments, if that's your thing, or email us directly. Either way, love to chat with you and maybe share some more fun stories out there, because real estate is full of some fun stories.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear your guys' stories too. So definitely share those with us. Thank you guys again for listening all the way to the end. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, whatever medium you're watching it on. Subscribe, hit like, hit the bell so you get notifications. Share this with your friends and family, and keep coming back. We're here to support you guys, help you grow in any way we can. Remember, this is a changing industry. You got to change with it. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.